Hey guys, Bassmaster Elite Series Pro, Wes Logan here. Gonna talk about grass fishing, my favorite, all-time favorite time of year to grass fish. That's gonna be in the fall. That's gonna be anytime from, September, depending on where you're at in the country, to when it gets cold. And like cold. Because the grass will kind of stay around, but it's really when it's starting to die off. And it's when I really feel like the fishing is probably the toughest, but I feel like it can be the most rewarding. And I've made a lot of money. I've almost won 2 Elite Series tournaments in the fall on grass lakes. So I feel like I kind of know what I'm looking for in a tournament aspect. The fishing is a lot tougher, but when you kind of figure out exactly the kind of deal that they're doing in it, it can be very rewarding. And kind of breaking it down, so from the whole year, springtime, we got wintertime, it's basically dead. It starts getting warmer, the water warms up, it's getting more sunlight, the grass starts growing, it's not quite topped out yet. You get into the summertime, you get in that June, July, August, it's the dog days, it's hot, that grass is really growing, kind of like the grass in your yard. In the summertime, the grass just grows a lot faster. It gets real lush and full and green. Well, you start getting those shorter days and those colder nights, that water temperature starts dropping, that grass starts dying off. And what that does, it creates opportunities to fish that grass different ways than you've been able to all year. And one of the, I'm going to break down, there's not very many techniques that I like to do, but they've been very successful to me, and I kind of just stick with those and just try and find the area that I can do it in. So there's going to be 2 trains of thought that time of year. The number one most obvious is going to be schooling. The fish love to school in that grass that's dying in the isolated clumps. And the reason for that is the bait's present. You're gonna get a lot of shad start getting onto these grass flats, like back in these creeks, on these flat creeks, or flats in the backs of these creeks is basically what I'm trying to say. So you'll see them, like you'll see big balls of shad up on the top, or whatever your forage may be, up on top of the water, and you'll just see fish constantly, schooling on them. But with that being said, those can be some of the hardest fish to catch all year because they're focused on such little bait in the fall. And that can be a problem, obviously not with grass, but if you have grass, that's where it's going to be the biggest problem. I like to throw little bitty buzz baits. I've got a buzz bait tied on here. This is a 3/8. This is not necessarily the one that I'm going to be throwing. I like to have a lot smaller profile. We're about to come out one with arc fishing. I have an 1/8 ounce coming out. It's going to be really good for that. Just a really small, compact profile, very quiet. It's not very loud, and it's just going to kind of mimic those, 1 3/4 to 2 inch shad that those fish try and key on in the fall when it's so hard to catch them. Like I've been in situations where I've seen 6-pounders come by my boat with their mouth open, eating 1.5 inch shad, just sucking them in like a vacuum. And those fish are very hard to catch. If you don't get there first thing in the morning, it's really hard to trick them, but that's one way that I really like to do it. Very small buzz bait, very natural color, don't want a lot of flash. I'll even throw a black blade sometimes just to have no flash and just have some commotion on top of the water. Really cool way to catch them if they're doing that deal. But the deal that I really like to look for, I like flipping grass. I like punching grass. That's when I've had my most success. And I've got one rigged up here. This one's on an ounce weight. I do it on a 710. It's my knockout rod in my signature series. It's a 710 heavy. It's a little bit shorter handle than most pitching rods, so I have a little bit shorter arms, and it's not going to get caught on my sleeve a lot as I'm flipping all day. Like, this is a technique that I'm going to put the rod in my hand and not pick it up all day. And the reason I'll do that in a tournament situation is I'm just looking for 5 to 7 bites of the biggest ones in the lake. And what I've come to find out in my, history of doing it is you're going to find a stretch. Like if you're flipping mats, there's 2 different, trains of thought. You'll have a straight line of grass that could be possibly on a creek channel or a river channel where there's a hard edge. Like it'll literally look like a wall of grass, of hydrilla or milfoil or anything like that. You're going to want to figure out, a lot of times those fish will set up so far off that edge. It may be a foot in, it may be 3 foot in, depending on how far the grass goes or the depth of the water. I like to tend to start out, if I get on a stretch, I'll put my trolling motor down and I'll flip 10 or 15 flips a foot in. I'll flip 10 or 15 flips 3 foot in. I'll flip 10 or 15 flips 6 foot in. If I get a bite on one of them, I won't try the rest of them, and I'll do that for a length of amount of time. If I don't get any bites, it may have been a fluke. I'll go back to the process that I was trying to break down. It's just a really good way to cover a lot of water doing this technique and try and break it down, because they're very patternable if you can figure it out that time of year in the grass. They will most likely all set up the same. You know, relatively. They won't all be within 1 foot and 1 inch, but they, you know, you'll kind of get a judge of where they're wanting to be doing this technique. And from a weight standpoint, like I said, this is an ounce. It's really just going to depend on how thick the grass is. And what will happen that time of year is it'll start, like I said, it'll start to die off. So you'll have that hard edge. And what will happen, I'm going to give up some juice here. So listen, you'll have the hard edge. And what will happen is it'll be topped out up into the mat. And there's going to be a back edge. And that fish doesn't care if there's a front edge or a back edge. It just wants to be on an edge. So more than likely, the majority of the bait is going to be in the mat. So if you can picture it, you've got the mat, you've got the hard edge out here. There's an edge on the inside under the mat that's covered with shade where the water's going to be cooler. Majority of your bites come on the inside edge. So if you can ever figure out where that edge is and you're flipping, you know, that's a majority of the time where all your bites are going to come from. So that's what I'm really trying to look for. And just depending on how heavy and how thick that mat is going to determine what size weight I use. I never go heavier than 1.5 ounces. I just don't like a 2 ounce because I lose a lot of fish on it, because I feel like there's so much tungsten. And when you bow up on one, that big piece of lead, or not lead, tungsten, has a bad tendency to pop that fish's mouth open and you don't get a good hook set on it. So the highest I'll go is 1.5 ounces. If I'm not getting through there, I'll just you know, change my baits out to get a slimmer profile, or, you know, cut the legs off of it, something like that. Just get something that goes in and out of the easiest. And you know, I like a Z-Craw Junior from Zoom. That's what I got rigged up here. It goes in and out really well. A Z-Hog Junior is really good too if this is hard to get through, because it's got the ribs on the side of it. If you're in, like I said, those really thick mats, it's hard to get in and out of. I'll go to the Z-Hog Junior. It's more of a slim body, no flapping on the leg. The legs are more streamlined. So that's also a very good bait. Not very many colors I'll go through with this. I'll throw the natural one or a black and blue. I mean, it's kind of just a 1-2 approach. And it kind of just depends on forage. If there's a lot of shad, I'll do the black and blue. I don't really have any scientific reasoning behind that. I just seem to do better when there's shad present on the black and blue than I do the green pumpkin. But I mean, from a punching standpoint, it's really a hard technique to commit to. But once you start figuring it out, it's really a fun way to fish. But the stuff that you use, the rod, the reel, the line, the setup, the hook, the weight, everything all works together. And it does with everything, don't get me wrong, but it's really critical when flipping grass. Like, you need the right rod, you need the right reel, you need the right line. And just to go through this setup again, this is my 710 heavy knockout rod. It's 60-pound FX2 Sunline braid, a arc gravity reel, 7-to-1. I don't like a real fast reel. We make an 8-to-1. I don't use it flipping. I feel like I lose a lot of power and torque, especially on those really big fish in those mats. Like, I've had situations where I tried the 8 and I'll get bowed up on one and like nothing will move. I can't turn the reel. The handle of the reel turns, but the spool won't turn because I just don't have enough torque in there because it's just so fast of a speed of reel. So a low 7 has been the best that I can find. It's still fast enough to get the bait in and out, but I've got enough torque to get that fish out of there. I've used a Gamakatsu heavy cover flipping hook most of the time. And then, like I talked about earlier, the size of the weight just kind of depends on the cover that you're fishing. But it's a really good setup when it comes to that. The 1/8 ounce buzzbaits are a really good way to catch them. One that I didn't mention, I just thought about, I don't have it laying out here. You can catch them sometimes really good on a small popper, but I like to work it kind of like a walking bait. And when I say a small one, like the smallest profile you can find to try and mimic those shad, because if you get out there that time of year, like I said, you're gonna see those small shad from that shad fry that's been, you know, from the shad spawn in the spring. That fry's done grown up a little bit, and that's what those fish really like to key on. So small, basically a summary of all of that is gonna be a small top water and a flipping bait. I kind of go away from the jig just because of how thick the mats are. That's when I like the Texas rig, the heavyweight. But if you get to go out that time of year, it's not going to be the easiest type of fishing, but it definitely can be the most rewarding. And in a tournament situation, you're only looking for 5 to 7 bites, and that's the best way that I've found to catch some really big ones. So next time you're out there, check that out, and good luck.